So hello again. This is Bioelectricity. I'm Roger Koch Barr. This is week 4 of the course, and we're in the final segment of week 4, the week in review. This week has involved lots and lots of details as well as the big picture of the Hodgkin and Huxley model for active tissue. Let's just look through it all once again so as to be sure that each of these puzzle pieces is placed in its right location in the overall picture that you're assembling in your mind. We started the week with a mystery. Where did the action potential come from? What was its mechanism? The HH model gave us the answer. The resistive current in the passive model was replaced by 3 ionic currents. And, notably, each of these currents had a probabilistic basis, that is, probabilities were used to find the amount of current at each moment. The most important part of the HH model was that it was possible to use it to move from one time to the next. Thereby we could trace out the time history of the transmembrane potential, whether in terms of the action potential voltage itself or in terms of the underlying events, such as the ionic currents or even the conductivities of the tissue. From the perspective of energy, which we started the course with, we started the week with no apparent source of energy for the big voltage changes that were seen in the active tissue's responses. So let me do that again. In week 4, we started the week with no source of energy. We were out of gas. Out of gas. We couldn't do anything. There was no way to figure out how to get any big bump after the little external stimulus. The Hodgkin-Huxley model showed us how to handle that situation. In particular, it linked into the calculation the energy stored in the membrane. Now, we knew there was energy stored in the membrane because we had talked about that quite a bit in week 2 of the course, but we hadn't put it into the active tissue model until we included the Hodgkin-Huxley calculations. They got it in there by including those batteries, EK, ENA, and EL, that were the encapsulation of that balance of the forces of diffusion and the forces of the electric field that we had talked about so extensively before. That has a big ramification. The Hodgkin-Huxley model, by linking the membrane model to the energy stored in the membrane, means that now the membrane has energy to run itself. You could put this rather poignantly by saying, bye-bye, iStem. I really don't need you anymore. I can just run things fine all by myself. Because I have my own energy, I can do it by myself. And indeed, that's what your tissue does. If it's in your heart, it does it by itself. A little bit modulated, but basically by itself. No external stimulus to keep it going. That's what's happening in your brain. Now, on the other hand, in your eyes and in your sensory system, there are stimuli that are provided by outside events. So if you look at the range of electrically active tissue, sometimes there is and sometimes there is not an outside stimulus, but it is no longer necessary because we see how the membrane has its own energy sources and can run itself when it wants to. In that sense, I have people who come to be students in a bioelectricity course who know a lot about electrical engineering. And in particular, they know a lot about pulse transmission and coaxial cables. And they really, really, really want electrical activity, especially in nerves, to be the same thing as pulse transmission in a coaxial cable. Well, as people say, sorry, Charlie, this is just not at all like pulse transmission in coaxial cable. No, no, no. And coaxial cable does not bring its own energy with it, whereas nerves, in fact, do, as do all excitable tissues. We'll end this week with those multiple insights, with this fascinating statue from the Duke campus, which shows a camel, along with Professor Knut Schmidt-Nielsen, who studied camels in many of their respects and unraveled many of their mysteries. And in these statues, you see the camel watching Knut, and Knut watching the camel, each one trying to figure the other one out. Thank you for watching.